Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be giving grades for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2021 draft class's first season here in the NFL. There's, a lot of variety to cover in this type of video, right? Some guys did some things as a starter, some guys did some things as backups and special teamers, some guys didn't do anything at all, which is, we're going to be covering all of that in this video today. Joining me yet again from the Cannon Fire podcast, it is my good friend, Evan. Evan, how you doing today?
I'm doing quite well, and it's an unusual video because normally we're going to be talking about a second and third round pick that essentially you kind of can't give a grade on because they didn't even really play. Very unusual, even for like a really good team, right? Your second round pick should contribute in some way, but in this instance it didn't. So very unusual and something that Bucs fans are not really used to. They're not used to seeing their second and third round picks not contributing, not because they're not good, but because they didn't need to.
Yeah, and in those situations, guys, we're definitely going to be talking about the development that could have possibly have been taking place with those players throughout their rookie years and what their futures may hold. So we've still got stuff to talk about in regards to those players. So obviously stay tuned for that. If you guys are new here, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button if you do enjoy these types of videos, and leave your thoughts about the Buccaneers 2021 draft class down in the comments section below. We would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. But Evan, let's go ahead and get started here with the first guy that was selected in the Buccaneers 2021 NFL draft class, taken with the 32nd overall pick in round number 1. It was Buccaneers outside linebacker Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Is that how you say the last name there?
Shoyinka.
That's close enough. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, outside linebacker, was selected there with the number 32 overall pick. Give your thoughts and opinions on how his rookie season went, as well as what grade you gave him.
Yeah, as a third pass rusher, which was the expected role for him going into the season, he actually played a little bit more than expected because Jason Pierre-Paul missed a few games at the end of the season there. So he had to play a little bit more than they probably expected. But, you saw, I think you saw the upside. He is a player with tremendous upside. Will he ever be a 15 sack guy? No, probably not. But I think this guy's ceiling is a guy who can consistently get you 10 sacks a season. He needs to become a better run defender. That's something that needs to happen. When Jason Pierre-Paul was out, one of the reasons the Bucs run defense was getting kind of shredded was partly due to Joe Tryon-Shoyinka overcommitting sometimes, not being used to playing the run. But, the Bucs put him in a lot of different positions. They lined him up outside as a linebacker. They lined him up inside sometimes. They had him stand up in coverage. So they asked him to do a lot of things, and I thought he handled it well. At the end of the day, he didn't play, as much as most other first-round picks do play. But I do think the upside is there, and I think he showed it. Needs to get better at tackling because I believe he ended up with 4 or 4.5 sacks, but he should have had maybe around 7. But he missed so many sacks just because he's like a bull in a china shop kind of. He's constantly going, and he needs to learn to slow down and get the tackle. I'm going to give him a solid B plus. I think you saw the flashes, and that's what you want to see from a first-round pick who's not going to play a ton. When he does play, you want him to impress. You also want him to impress against lesser competition and make them look like lesser competition, and that's exactly what he did in training camp and in the preseason. I mean, in the preseason, he was almost, unblockable. He was just, you couldn't block him. And it's because he was going up against not so great competition, dominating, and that's what you want to see. A second round pick a few years ago, the Bucs, Noah Spence, who I love dearly, as people who listen to CFP know, the issue with him was, towards his end in Tampa, he was playing against third stringers and he was struggling to get off blocks against the third stringers. That's the difference between that guy and this guy. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka was just dominating, and that's what you want to see. Like I said, out of a first round pick who's not going to play a ton. So I give him a B plus, and I do think the future for him is quite bright.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything that you said there. Joe Tryon showed solid flashes, right? As a pass rusher, Evan, we were almost right on the money in terms of, what to expect for his rookie year, right? I think we were actually pretty darn close. It could have been better than what we said it was going to be, right? He just missed a couple of sacks here or there that really would have overall had him, have a really solid rookie year. Like you said, I mean, well, granted, he still had a solid rookie year, right? But even greater than what it was, already on the stat sheet there. Like you said, he was able to do some really interesting things here. They put him in a lot of different situations, like what the Buccaneers have done with their outside linebackers, putting him in coverage, having him play on the D-line in certain situations, all these other, assignments that they gave Joe Tryon to do this year. Overall, I think he did a good job. Like you said, JPP went out with an injury. Joe Tryon came in. He still has some things that he does need to improve on, but you see the potential there, man. You really do. You can kind of understand why some people in the national media were saying, man, the Bucs really did get a steal with Joe Tryon potentially here at the end of the first round, because there are flashes there of this guy can be a legit pass rusher in this league. Like you said, with JPP, whatever they decide to do with him, is he going to retire? Is he going to go into free agency? Whatever it may be, it seems like there's a pretty legitimate chance that he won't be on this roster come next season. Enter Joe Tryon. Maybe they feel comfortable enough for him to be a starter. That's going to be a situation we're going to have to talk about. But I would say at the very least, Joe Tryon has solidified himself as a consistent, solid third pass rusher for this team already in his rookie year. And I know people are going to be used to like, oh, come on, man, Tristan Wirfs, Antoine Winfield Jr., sometimes, it's nice to kind of take slow burns with these types of things. And even with Joe Tryon, I don't even know if you would classify that as a slow burn, right? It was just, I think it was a fine start to his career here in Tampa Bay. I gave him a grade as a B. So a little bit lesser than a B plus. But overall, I think it was just a solid rookie year overall for Joe Tryon. A really good year to build off of, I think, right? You see what Joe Tryon needs to improve on now. You see ways he can get better and what he needs to work on. And now you just see you're looking for him to improve in those ways. You're looking for him to, gain more playing time, potentially even be a starter next year and see where he can go from there. So overall, I think he did a very, very good job this year in terms of his overall production. Moving on now to round number 2, Evan. Oh, man, it's our guy. Taken with the 64th overall pick in round number 2. It's Kyle Trask. Evan, for those of you who were here during our draft live stream when this pick was made, you saw mine and Evan's reactions, right, to this pick. Oh, that was a blast. That was one of my favorite moments here on the channel by far. Evan, your thoughts on Kyle Trask? Because he didn't play at all this year. He was inactive throughout the entirety of the regular season. So for this guy, we're kind of just talking about what his future might be, right? So what are your thoughts on Trask here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the plan was never for him to get in any games, right? In any regular season games. If he did, something was very wrong. But I thought preseason he showed signs of a rookie quarterback. There were some good things. There was a lot of bad things, and that's to be expected. Really, his whole camp was up and down, but it's tough to judge him. It really is. So as for the future, look, I mean, we still don't know about the Buccaneers quarterback situation. We don't know who's going to be the definite 2022 opening day starter. With Tom Brady's status up in the air, do the Bucs go after Aaron Rodgers? Do they go after Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, whoever it may be? We don't know, right? So it very well could be Kyle Trask. And do I think it will be? I have my doubts. I don't think the Bucs are just going to throw him to the wolves right away. But, I don't know what the Bucs feel about him, but obviously my personal feelings, I wasn't, a huge fan of his coming out of college. I just didn't feel like he had the upside, like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka like to talk about his upside. I just didn't really feel like Trask had the upside to be like a starting quarterback who can consistently put good seasons in and out, right? Like every single season, not a top quarterback, but like he's going to have a good season every single year. I just didn't really see that with him. But, for the future, this could be a guy who is starting football games for the Buccaneers possibly way sooner than anybody thought. So, it was definitely good to see some progression. It was good that he got a full year just to sit and soak up all the information from Tom Brady. And, this is a big preseason / camp coming up for him. Even if, they have a veteran in place like a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers, even if they have that, this is a big, or Tom Brady. Like, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter who the quarterback is.
Right.
This is a big one because you want to see that improvement. You want to see Kyle Trask look better than he did last training camp, right? If you're not seeing that, that's worrisome. That's where you start to say, okay, he's not really showing much progression there. That's where you need to start to worry. But, it'll be interesting to see it. He's one of the players I'm pretty excited to see it during camp.
Well, I'm going to clip that and save that for the rest of time, that you're excited to watch Kyle Trask play some football. Evan, for me, I just put NA, not available, right? Because Kyle Trask, again, of course, he didn't play. He didn't have to. He shouldn't have had to play, right? Unless they want to do some crazy package where he's out there playing tight end or something on a trick play, whatever you want to call it. Again, Trask didn't have to be out there. Like you said, though, what the Buccaneers have done with this situation, I think, is great. It's no pressure, right? You can be patient with a guy like Kyle Trask. I think to a certain degree. He's had time to learn under Tom Brady. He's had time to learn under, Blaine Gabbert. He was a, solid veteran quarterback in the league. He's had time to learn under Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich, Tom Moore, Clyde Christensen, all these names, right? All these great names that have, been around the league and can teach a guy how to play quarterback. Trask was able to get a lot of that input, a lot of that insight on what it means to play quarterback in this league. So I think overall it was a good learning experience this year for Kyle Trask, right? And like you said, come next training camp, come next season, Trask might be battling for a starting quarterback spot. He may be tabbed as the backup. He may be tabbed as the third string quarterback again. We don't know. And we probably won't know for a couple of more weeks now until we get a lot more insight and information on what the heck is going on with Tom Brady and what the Buccaneers' options are going to be. But I think overall the plan is still going to be taking time with Kyle Trask. And that's what should be the time, or should be the plan, right, is to take time. And the Buccaneers thankfully have the option to do that with whatever they decide to do at the quarterback position. I still think they are going to work with developing Kyle Trask and hopefully get the ball rolling more and more on his development, and maybe he'll eventually grow into a starter.
Yeah, you're not going to see the Bucs draft a quarterback in the first round or second round. Like, they're going to continue to develop Kyle Trask now. Depending on the quarterback situation, if Kyle Trask doesn't progress this season, and let's say he's not the starter, let's say Tom Brady's still the starter, but Trask doesn't, progress, Tom Brady retires after next season, then maybe you do look to draft a quarterback because you've had 2 years of Trask now, and if he hasn't impressed you yet. But yeah, they're not going to be, if Kyle Trask isn't starting on this team, it's not because a rookie quarterback is.
Right. I agree. So again, with Trask, you just look for development. You just look for him to continue to grow, much like what he did this rookie season. So moving on to round number 3, Evan, with the number 95 overall pick in round number 3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selected backup center Robert Hainsey. Again, Evan, I don't have a grade on Hainsey because he didn't play. I mean, he did play special teams a decent amount. We saw him do some interesting things in, preseason and training camp. He was dealing with some nagging injuries, but at this point, heck, it just seems like he's a backup right now, probably an insurance policy, and unless something happened with Jensen. But kind of what are your thoughts on Hainsey now in his rookie season and where he may go in the future?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're right about the nagging injury kind of thing in training camp. He missed a good portion, so I think the Bucs are excited for him to get a full camp. He was drafted. He played a lot of guard at Notre Dame, but they've been playing him at center, and he's essentially been the backup center. And Ryan Jensen's a free agent, so perhaps that maybe you have a change there. Maybe it is Robert Hainsey. Maybe the dollars don't make sense to bring Ryan Jensen back, and you can roll with Hainsey, who you clearly have some faith in because you drafted him. So he did some good things. He had that one really nice block on the Scotty Miller end around the last game of the season. The Bucs put in some of their backups, and Hainsey had a really nice block on that one. So he has shown signs of encouragement. It's just now it's up to I wouldn't expect him to be the starting center next year. I still think they'll try and bring back Ryan Jensen, but like you said, you can't give him a grade. He didn't play enough. But
Right.
I think, like I said, I think the Bucs are excited for him to get a full training camp. Hopefully he's healthy, and then they can see what they actually got. If Jensen signs, it's not going to be some long-term deal. So it's likely going to be a 1 or maybe 2-year contract. So you still could be looking at Hainsey potentially being the center of the future.
Yeah, I think that the best thing the Bucs can hope for, maybe for the next year, maybe the next 2 years, Trask and Hainsey develop a great chemistry with each other, right? Because that could be the future of, the quarterback and center position. And you always want those guys to have good chemistry. Like you said, if the Bucs do end up bringing back Ryan Jensen, Hainsey isn't going to be the starter there. I don't think they'd move him over to guard either to maybe replace an Alex Kappa if he left in free agency. It seems like they are pretty set on Hainsey playing center, but they have also said in the past that, hey, they want Hainsey to learn all 5 offensive lineman positions. They want that versatility in a guy like Hainsey. So I don't know. I think that, like you said, you look for growth, you look for the potential there in Hainsey. The Bucs are excited about him. I know me and you are, pretty excited about Hainsey and what he can potentially do here in the future. And again, much like Kyle Trask, it's a bit of a waiting game, but that's not a negative thing. That can be a positive thing because it gives guys the time that they need to grow and develop and be ready for NFL action. So again, no grade, but I think the future is exciting for a guy like Hainsey for sure. Moving on to round number 4, Evan. This is where it gets sad, I think, for us, because me and you are both a fan of this guy. In the 4th round with pick number 129, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers actually traded up to select this player. They selected Jaelon Darden, a wide receiver, kick returner, punt returner. It was I think a rough year for Jaelon Darden in his rookie season, and I want your thoughts on that situation.
Yeah, this was a guy who burst onto the scene really in training camp. But when the pads came on, it was kind of a Kenny Bell thing. When the pads came on, he kind of disappeared and then wasn't even the starting kick returner the first few weeks of the season. If you remember, they had Jaydon Mickens still. They had cut Jaydon Mickens and then signed him back to their practice squad and were using Mickens as a practice squad elevation. So they didn't even feel that Darden was ready to start the season as their kick returner. Played basically exclusively there, played a little bit at wide receiver, but not enough to really gauge, how well he is. But obviously with the injuries, he played a little bit. Man, I think this has to be the biggest disappointment because the Bucs were hoping that they had found their kick returner. This was a guy who did it consistently and did it consistently well at North Texas, and he just couldn't seem to figure it out. It's like he couldn't make up his mind on where he wanted to go a lot of the times. He thought, and rookies do that. It's a rookie. It's an adjustment, but the NFL is so fast. I think Darden thought he had more time than he did on a lot of these returns. And by the time he made up his mind on what he was going to do, it was already too late. So this one you can, and also, Jaelon Darden is responsible for one of Tom Brady's interceptions. It's an egregious interception that's credited to Brady, but Darden catches the football against Washington, has it for a good 2 seconds or so, and the ball pops up in the air after Darden gets hit, and then intercepted by Washington. Should have been credited as a fumble. So we can give a grade on this one. He played enough. We can give a grade. Unfortunately for him, it will not be as positive as Joe Tryon-Shoyinka's. I am going to give Jaelon Darden a D. He didn't do enough. He really didn't. And the only reason it's a D is because I still kind of believe in the player. I still believe that there is a decent returner in there somewhere. He had the one decent return against Chicago, and then that was it. And I believe that that guy's in there. I just don't know if that's going to happen. And it certainly didn't happen this season.
I agree with everything you said there. Me and you both had high hopes for Jaelon Darden, right? I remember you came away from the draft. You said Jaelon Darden's my favorite guy from this draft class, right? Potentially the biggest steal of the Bucs draft class again. But just the expectations, unfortunately, Jaelon Darden did not meet them. Not just a kickoff and returner, kickoff and punt returner, but shoot, I was saying, heck, he might even get some legitimate snaps at wide receiver, might be able to do some really interesting things, and it didn't work, And Evan, I'm going to say this. It's not a great sign that even with all the injuries to the wide receiver position, we still didn't see a lot of Jaelon Darden out there. I mean, the Bucs were running on fumes, towards the end of the regular season. We still weren't seeing Jaelon Darden out there. Some people might counter and say, well, that's because he was at a returner. Look, we still saw, guys like Jaydon Mickens out there getting snaps even while he was returning kicks and whatnot. Like you said, they took a bit of a gamble there. They really wanted to see Jaelon Darden pay off. They released Jaydon Mickens into free agency, they released him, brought him back on the practice squad. He eventually left to go sign with Jacksonville. So it was basically, they could only have Jaelon Darden. He was their only option left, really. And it just didn't work, Like you said, his decision-making was a bit off. He didn't get much help in terms of punt coverages, but he was slipping. He was falling on a lot of his returns, and it just looked like clumsy, I think, is a word that could be a good way to describe it, or clinky, in a way. So yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I actually gave him a D grade as well. But I still have high hopes for Jaelon Darden. I think there's a lot that he needs to improve on. And he's going to get some opportunities again, Evan. I mean, the wide receiver room, I think after guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who we assume the Buccaneers are probably going to bring back, there's some questions as to who is going to be able to step up, who is going to be able to take that next leap and be the third wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or have a impact as a fourth wide receiver, and so on and so on. Darden's going to be right in that mix, so I think that next training camp, next preseason, it's really going to be crucial for his development and being able to prove that, hey, I've made great strides since this rookie season. I've come a long way, and we'll see if he can be able to do that after what was admittedly a pretty unfortunate rookie season. Next, Evan, we have round number 5, pick number 176, Britt, who played pretty much exclusively special teams. He did get some opportunities as a backup linebacker, making a few tackles here or there once the Buccaneers were dealing with injuries to guys. Like Levante David was out for a handful of games. Kevin Minter was in there for a bit. Britt was in there for some plays as well. But I'm going to kind of honestly, Evan, grade this for exclusively special teams play. I think overall, I give Britt a solid B- for special teams play, right? We didn't see him make a ton of incredible flashy plays, but we didn't really see him make too many mistakes, in my opinion. So overall, I think that he did what he was exactly drafted to do, which was the Buccaneers needed solid special teams players. Unfortunately, Britt can't go out there and be a gunner on punts or anything along those lines. But I still think he was an overall solid special teams player. That's why I gave him a B-. What are your thoughts on Britt and how he did this year?
Yeah, obviously the Bucs drafted him to be a special teams guy. The Bucs looked at their special teams and rightfully so thought that it was just not good enough and needed to be improved. So really their day 3, if you think about it, day 3 of their class, the players they picked, Jaelon Darden, Britt, and the 2 others that we're going to talk about in a minute here, the players they picked, those were special teams players. Those were guys who were, they were going to make their mark on special teams. Jaelon Darden, at the time, the Bucs had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Tyler Jonathan, Scotty Miller. They had all these guys. You knew that Jaelon Darden wasn't going to get many snaps at wide receiver, but he was brought in for special teams. Britt, the Bucs have Devin White, Levante David, and Kevin Minter. You knew Britt was not going to be getting any snaps at linebacker. So yeah, I thought he did a fair job on special teams. I'm going to give him a B, which is slightly higher than yours. And the reason I'm going to do that is because when Britt did appear in the games, specifically, I believe he appeared in both Carolina games, he flashed a little bit to me. There was a few plays that I thought, okay, that's a pretty solid play. Very limited snaps, but in those limited snaps, that's what puts him to a B for me. So will he ever become anything more than just a special teams player? I would bet not, but it's nice to see that he can step in and make a player here and there.
One thing I would argue with him showing flashes, in those opportunities, like you said, and I love the grade there at the B, Kevin Minter's got an expiring contract. Do we
Yeah.
see a guy like KJ Britt kind of slot into that third linebacker role?
Maybe. I mean, I do think there's linebackers a position they could be looking at again in the draft or in free agency. So, because I think, they might want one more year of KJ Britt maybe developing there before they thrust him into an important role like that. Because, I mean, Kevin Minter had to play a lot this season, like with Levante David going down a bunch of times. Kevin Minter had to play more than the Bucs wanted him to. So, not sure if you'd want to put that on KJ Britt as well. So, but it's possible. And, him showing those flashes definitely bodes well for his future.
Yeah, absolutely. And Evan, we've got two more guys we're going to talk about here. 2 7th-round draft picks. The first guy taken with the 251st overall pick in round number 7, Chris Wilcox. There ain't much to say. He didn't make it that far, unfortunately. He was cut. It wasn't even part of the final roster cuts, really.
Nope.
It was just a situation of, I know that Chris Wilcox was actually out for a considerable amount of time throughout the offseason program due to injury. It was unfortunately too little too late for him to catch up and really try and cement himself in for a backup cornerback job or a special teams role or anything like that. I believe he had ended up signing with the Colts practice squad, where I think he spent most of the season. What are your quick thoughts on this? Because there really ain't much to say, unfortunately.
Yeah, they just took a flyer on a player that they thought could be a special teams contributor and potentially 5th/6th cornerback, and he just couldn't. The injury definitely hurt him, and they felt like, at the time, D. Delaney, who ended up winning that 5th cornerback job, was just a better option.
Yeah, and, D. Delaney did end up playing a lot this season, so... maybe Chris Wilcox was sitting there thinking, it should have been me. It should have been me, man. But, it was still unfortunate for Chris Wilcox. Best of luck to him in Indianapolis or wherever he does end up. The last pick here, Evan, though, taken with the 259th overall pick in round number 7, Mr. Irrelevant himself, Grant Stuard, friend of the channel. Again, exclusively a special teams player. I don't even think we saw him pop into the defensive lineup, except whenever all the backups were in, right? Whenever the Buccaneers were really beating down an opponent. So again, I'm going to mark him down just for special teams grade alone. Evan, and I know people are going to say this. Oh, James, you're biased. I'm going to give him an A based on his special teams play. I really think Grant Stuard knocked it out of the park this year in terms of special teams play. I thought he did a fantastic job, and I want your thoughts on this before I continue with what I want to say, because I could go for a little bit on this.
Yeah, he was as advertised. When they drafted him, you kind of thought, okay, this is a pure special teams player. This is a player who is, if he's playing linebacker for you and your defense, you're having some issues, because that's definitely not his strong suit, but special teams is what he does. I'm going to give him an A-. And now, keep in mind, that's with the basis of him being a special teams player and him being Mr. Irrelevant. Like, just because I gave him a higher grade than Tryon-Shoyinka doesn't mean I think he's the better pick.
It's context to the grade.
Yes, of course. You have to look at where he was selected and what he did, If Joe Tryon-Shoyinka was selected in the 2nd round, it would have been an A. Like, it would have been an A+. But he was selected in the 1st. It was a B+. I really liked Stuard, and he really, it seemed like as the season went on, he showed up more and more. And is a guy who really they've needed. They still need a few pieces on that special teams with, nitpicking certain things. Stuart's not really like a gunner. Like, he's not really like that. But he's a solid special teams player who's always responsible. And I think is going to make the special teams unit better. So in reference to this pick and what the Bucs wanted with this selection, I think it was a pretty good one. That's why I gave it the highest grade that I've given out for this class.
Yeah, exactly what you said. It's important to add context to this, grade and context to all the grades in the draft class, given what they were supposed to do, what were they drafted to do, right? And again, Grant Stuard, I think, knocked it out of the park, man. I really think that this guy, Evan, I was thinking this towards the end of the regular season, he might have a legit chance to be a special teams captain next year. I mean, he was really that great of a special teams player. He said it here on the channel. He said, hey, if I got to play special teams, I'm going to be, one of the best special teams players I can be. And I'm going to study special teams players and see what I need to do. And it looked like all that studying, all that effort did pay off. Again, we talk about a guy like Kevin Minter who's going to be going into free agency, a guy who was a special teams captain this year and has been in years past, and has really been like a linchpin, definitely been a staple of what that Buccaneers interior special teams unit is able to do on kickoffs and punt coverages and whatnot. I think Grant Stuard's ready to take over that role. I think he is ready to be one of the better special teams players that the Buccaneers have for the next few years here. Thankfully, the Buccaneers have got him on a good couple of years here left on his contract, and we'll see where he goes after that. We'll see if he develops into something as a linebacker, as a backup linebacker. Maybe he can do some stuff there as well. But I would say at the very least, knocked it out of the park in terms of his special teams play, which is also why I gave him the highest grade here for the Buccaneers 2021 draft class based on what he was able to do. So with that being said, Evan, overall, I would say let's give it a grade for the draft class overall. But again, shoot, half these guys didn't even play. So I don't think that's very fair to do that because, we might not even have a definitive answer on some of these guys for years upon years now before they really start to develop in their careers. So I think we'll just leave it where we're at now. Let us know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below, what your grades would be for these Buccaneers rookies after their first season, and what you would give them in terms of a grade for their rookie seasons as well. Evan, I want to thank you for being on. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. For everybody watching this video, if you want to go see the Cannon Fire podcast, go check them out down in the pinned comment down in the comment section below. Also, stay tuned for a pretty cool announcement that me and Evan will be having coming up here soon, probably in the next few days, maybe a week, something along those lines. You guys aren't going to want to miss it. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed, and we will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.